Okay, it seems that we are live. Please tell me if you can hear me alright, if anyone is online. Okay, I'll switch to the camera. Okay, so hi. Today I wanted to show you, to speak to you and to show you some things and to make a little update about my current situation and show you some things and do some quick, how do you call it? Advice giving session kind of thing. I have some images from you and I have some images to show you and I have some printouts to show you too. So without further ado, let's get to it. And okay, so the weather has been kind of really weird in Japan lately. We have really hot weather, but also it's windy and it's rainy, and the weather is really bad lately. This is just about 3 days, I guess, since I managed to get my cold right. So I had a cold for I think 2 weeks or something. So I was not able to do like live videos, or I was not able to do any YouTube videos. Today is the first one I uploaded for some time, but this is also because I have been really busy doing the Tokyo at Night book. As you know, I'm still doing the book, but I'm on the last leg of making the book. I already finished 28 of the 30 illustrations that are needed for the book, so only 2 illustrations to go, which is really good. I'm really happy about that. And to finish the book, I also have to do the English text. I also have to do the correction of the translated Japanese text and some other illustrations. But also, we have to decide the look of the book. I have been updating you on the progress on the book on Patreon limited posts that only you can see. So if you are kind of curious about um, how the bookmaking process continues, you can read it on Patreon. I will be posting more as we progress. I still have to do also the illustrations that are not like the main illustrations, so the like tools that I used for this particular book. I will try to draw them and put them in the book again, as I did in my previous one. And I also want to do some other things for the book, like maps and stuff. But the most important thing right now is to decide the look of the book itself, because we are already on this kind of stage where most of the content is decided. I already wrote half of the text, so we have some things to go with. So let me show you some things. Okay, so here we have the Tokyo at Night book dummy. Uh, Yay! It doesn't have anything inside. It's still blank pages, but I have some first early ideas for the book cover, which features 2 of the illustrations that I painted for the book. So that's the front, and that's the front. That's the back, and this part here will be what in Japan they call the obi, so the wrap wraparound thing that you put around the book, and you can later take it off. And now we are kind of considering other illustrations that can come here, so maybe not this one, maybe a different one. Also about the font here, about the how it should be printed, about what paper should we use. The book should have a binding that will allow it to be opened flat without this kind of gap here. So this will also make some problems, but overall design for the cover is will be more or less like this. There are still money problems, so if we have enough money, we will try to do something like glossy coating on the letters only, or make them pressed or something like that. So that will be later for the editor and the designer to decide, because they know best what we can do with our current budget. Okay, so this is the cover, and also what I got today, this is a fresh thing from the publisher, is a pile of pages like this, which is the contents of the book. So this is like a dummy of the contents of the book. So I have most of the pages printed here, at least the pages that are containing the illustrations. So I can check if the design is alright. I can see them in the size that it will be actually printed at. I will show you a page that is kind of interesting maybe. So things like this. So here the black marks on the text page is where the Japanese text will be, and on the below it is the English text, and here is the like a thumbnail that tells you about which part of the picture is the text. So this is a dummy of the first, I think, third of the book, so the part about the illustrations. And as you can see, I don't know, let me put it. As you can see, this is already kind of thick, because this will be like this. So this is already about 120 pages, I guess. And bonus to this will be the making of the illustration process, me talking about the location hunting, about how I chose the scenes for the book, about let me put it lower. Talking about other things. So the book will contain more and more contents than just only the illustrations here. We also have surprise content that I'll tell you probably something around next month when we finish making it, but this will be an interview with someone that you probably know that will be also featured in this book. And this part will be not written by me, but written by an author that specializes in writing these kind of interviews and essays. So you will be able to read a bit more better English, also part of this book. And also all the things that I wrote for this book and will be writing from now on will be corrected and will be edited by the same person who will be also translating the thing to Japanese. So I'm hoping that the English language quality in this book will be alright also, but this also makes it kind of harder to put together and harder to edit, because there are like many versions of the text that we have to check and see if everything fits together. So for this, like for this process, this kind of dummy is really helpful. I can see all the pages. I can see how actually the illustrations that I did will look on the page, and this is actually the same size that the book will be in the end. So I can see, even though this is just like a dummy print, so this is just like printed on a laser printer, it already looks kind of nice, and the font looks nice, and the layout is, I think, easy to understand. So yeah, this is starting to look like a book, and I'm really happy because until now this was only like a bag of files on my hard drive, and it didn't look like anything. So I'm happy to receive this kind of printout that is starting to look like something that you'll be able to actually hold in your hand. And as I said, it will be like this thick when it's finished. So it's more or less the same thickness as my previous Tokyo Storefronts book, but yeah, this time we are aiming for a bit more adult oriented content. So less colorful, less shiny, more kind of mature content, I guess. So yeah, okay, if you have any questions that you want to ask live, I have the chat here open, so you can ask, but I want to speak about some things that you already asked me in comments, and I have them here. Okay, so the first question comes from Karina Kushnir, I think. I'll post it on the chat. She's struggling to find a nice brush for her, and she's trying to find a nice synthetic brush. Okay, so I have been using these brushes for a long time now. Let me focus on this really quick. Okay, so I have been using these brushes for some time now. These are the Raphael Soft Aqua brushes. I have also them listed on my website, and I really like them actually because they are not so expensive, but also because they come in a lot of sizes. I have here the brushes that I use daily, and I also have smaller than this and larger than this, but these are the ones that I usually paint with. These are like the size 12 and 8 and 14, and these are like it says that it's squirrel imitation, so they are artificial fiber brushes, but actually I find them not so soft, so they are really nice. Let me zoom on it. Can I zoom more? Okay. So you should be able to see the brush. It's a nice tip actually. I like that it's kind of rounded, and when it's wet it has a more pointy tip, but it's generally a bit rounded if you compare it to a standard like Kolinsky, so natural hair brush. It's always like this kind of pointy tip, and I actually find this pointy natural hair brushes a bit hard to use. I don't know, it's just my personal preference, I think. I actually prefer these imitation, so artificial fiber brushes because they give me this kind of rounded tip that's a bit easier to use, especially with this style of painting that I do. And I actually recommend these brushes because I have been using them for a year, I think, already. I did the whole Tokyo at Night book paintings with these brushes, and they are still kind of okay to use. I don't see so much wear or any, how do you call it, change in them so much. Maybe in the smallest one that I use a lot, but they are good quality, and I like how they work. And also you can buy the same brand brushes, but let me okay, so you can buy the same brand and the same hair brushes, but in this mop brush shape, and they this is, I think, the smallest one, and they get quite big also, but they're not so expensive. So this is a good quality mop brush choice also, and I like to use it, but usually I use the regular regular ones. Yeah, so I recommend it. If you want to know more about the tools that I use, I have the tools listed on my website, and you can go there and see all the names of the brushes and all the brands and sizes I have listed there. But yeah, lately I have been trying to switch from natural hair brushes, which kind of interested me for some time because everyone says, oh, these are the best for painting with watercolors, to artificial fiber brushes, actually, because I think if we can make brushes that are so good, I don't think there's actually any particular reason to use natural hair brushes. If you are really used to this kind of tip shape, like the sharp tip, then maybe it's better to use just natural hair brushes. You can get a bit cheaper ones that also have the Kolinsky fibers, like the Kohinoor one that I bought last year in Prague. It was actually quite cheap, so I bought it just to test it. But I prefer artificial fibers. Okay. I was told that the brand Escoda makes really nice artificial fiber brushes, even though a bit more expensive. But I haven't been able to just buy them in Japan, because from what I was able to find, they just sell them in like huge expensive sets. So I don't know about them, but I heard some good things about them too. Okay, next thing, Jeremy Partura, or Jeremy Partura, I'm sorry for the name, asks, he was wondering if I still work on anime, and I got some offers for work on animation. I got some offers for backgrounds mostly, and background direction, art direction, but I was not able to participate because these are projects that, as you know, require a year or something out of my artist life to be cut out and used for someone else's project. As much as some of them are really interesting and some of them are really nice, like interesting projects and interesting animations from directors that I really like, and I really some of them I really admire. I declined most of them because of just my approach to art lately. So instead of doing commissions and working for someone else's vision. I would like to spend most of my time doing my own art, so concentrating, focusing on my own art. So instead of doing background direction on a TV series or Netflix series, I chose to do the Tokyo at Night book that I think will be a nice thing to have on a bookshelf, and I hope that a lot of you will enjoy. Uh, and this is also the way in which I can do what I like the most, so to realize most of my vision. And I also got an invitation from Makoto Shinkai, from director Makoto Shinkai, to do backgrounds for his newest movie, the Tenki no Ko. So I think it's called Weathering with You or something like that in English. And I was unable to participate again because I was already halfway through making my upcoming book. But I managed to help them a little bit, and I'll show you what I did. Let me turn this on. Where is it? Okay, so here's the poster for the Weathering with You, so the new movie from Makoto Shinkai, and I did the whole background for it. Even though the characters were made and the stuff like the umbrella were made by the animators, so the animation stuff probably by the lead animator, I did the background for this, and this was actually one of the most difficult and time-consuming pieces that I did for some time, because this poster was huge. This file was about 10 or 14,000 pixels high, so with a lot of layers. All the buildings, all the stuff in the background was divided into small tiny layers with a lot of details, like the windows of the buildings and stuff, on separate layers, and everything had to be on separate layers. So later the lead background artist, so the background director, could adjust it so it matches perfectly the style of the movie. And the characters can be kind of put in between layers, so you can see some of the grass in front of the legs of the character, and some of them stuff is behind it, and so everything had to be done on separate layers. And my computer is not really up to the task of doing like 10,000 pixel huge files like this, so I was really struggling with this picture. Even though I'm working on a MacBook Pro, which is not so weak, I think this was really power consuming and was really difficult to do. But I'm happy that I was able to help them a bit when they were really pressed with the impending deadline for the animation. So yeah, at least I could do this. Okay, so a question from, let me switch to the camera. A question from Abraham. Did you ever try platinum carbon ink on the Lamy? It seems like it's completely waterproof and suitable for fountain pens. Did you try any kind of flexible fountain pen in order for more expressive strokes? Okay, so I have been using the carbon ink for a long time before switching to the blue black ink that I'm using right now. And this is probably one of the only waterproof black inks that I found in Japan that can be safely used with fountain pens. I have been using it with a really cheap Pilot, I think it's Kakuno pen, so like a plasticky cheap pen that you can buy for like $10 or $15. It's good enough for like basic drawing, but with this ink, if you leave it for a week or two, you have the probability that it will be clogged with waterproof ink. And with a cheap pen like the Kakuno, you can say like, oh, whatever, I'll just buy another one. But if you have a Lamy that's probably like 5 times the price of a Kakuno, then I would not recommend using it. I have been using the carbon ink with my Indigraph, so with the Indigraph fountain pen. I'll show you. Wait, I'll just find it. So I have my Lamy here, which has just a regular fountain pen ink, and I have been using the carbon ink with the Indigraph, which now has this extra fine nib I'm testing right now, and this has a converter with the carbon ink inside, because I actually like how it flows, and I like how it behaves in this. But as you can see, this is really wet because it's kept wet by the water in the cup. So even if I leave it for a week or two, and even if I have it in my pen case, it still works all right. But I would not use it on a Lamy if you don't use it like every day and keep a really strict and tight maintenance on it. But yeah, I would not use it. I haven't been able to do any drawing with a flexible nib fountain pen yet. I'm thinking of maybe buying one in the future, but I actually like lines that are more stable and with not so much variation. Even if I use Japanese manga pens, so like the nib pens, I usually go for the stable ones, so like a school pen or Saji pen. For me, the G pen is really too it's really too difficult to use. I'm not skilled enough with pens yet to use it. Okay. Okay, answering question from Valentin. I really like drawing backgrounds and end up drawing almost only this. Do you have any exercise to practice character design? I did some exercises in YouTube recently where I was doing random characters on random shapes, and I found that actually having like this freedom of doing whatever you want on these random blobs of color that are usually like just my watercolor test swatches, it's kind of liberating, and I really like that I don't have to think about stuff, and it's almost like automatic writing, so you just don't think about what you're doing. And some of the things that came out of these kind of random drawing sessions, I'm sure that I'll incorporate into my character designs because they just looked cool. So I recommend doing this kind of random drawing, and you can do only like faces, or you can do like whole characters like Heikala did what you said. So that's actually really nice. But what I usually do for my character practice is I like to accumulate a lot of kind of cool character drawings in my kind of cool character drawings folders, and I have a lot of these that I look at to kind of get some inspiration. And these are completely kind of random, just some characters. I will show you one recent folder that I have. So I have a folder of characters, just pictures that I pulled from various places. and I use them as inspiration for drawing stuff. And these are just like interesting pictures that I found somewhere on Twitter, on various places, and I would not use them as direct reference for a picture that I want to do, but just an inspiration. And actually, I find that having a folder like this is nice if you keep about 50 to 100 files in one folder, and then you can go back in your kind of folder character history and see what did you think was cool like a month or a year ago, and it kind of shows you where your kind of character sense or where your style is going, so you can go to your folder number 1 or folder number 3 and see what's there and say like, oh, I did like this thing, but I don't like it now. So it kind of also shows you what style or what kind of atmosphere you can aim for in your own designs. So yeah, so that's a nice method. I am already on folder number 22, and if I see the folder number 2 or 3 that I did like 8 years ago or whatever, I'm always surprised that I did like this kind of stuff. So it kind of shows you that your sense of what's nice and what's not nice is developing. So having a lot of reference is helpful a lot. Yeah, also drawing comics is really good for for character practice. Okay. I have also a question. Okay, so let's go to the second part. You can ask me stuff still in the chat, but I'll switch to my screen because I have a question from Ivan Rosso, and he asked me to do a quick advice, criticism about a picture that he did recently, and I have it here. Let me transition and close this. Okay, so he did a picture like this, which is just a storefront, and to be honest, this is a really nice picture. And what's interesting, he did it in Procreate, which is nice. And he wanted to ask me for advice about it. Okay, so the first bit of advice I have about this picture is to be more careful about the shape of things. And what I mean about it is you have nice shop here that is divided into parts. So like this. Let me take a brush here, mark some things. So we have this part here, and we have this part here, and we have this roof that's standing out, and we have this part here, and we have this part here. But most of these parts that you have here in this picture are kind of flattish, so it would be nice to give more kind of space to them. And I see that and three dimensionality, and I see that you tried to do something like this by putting this shadow here. And maybe if you look at a photo, you will see that a camera would put a really dark shadow under a roof like this, because that's what a camera does. But to make this picture a bit more interesting, we could make this shadow also a bit more interesting and put more three-dimensionality to the things in this picture. Okay, so what I would do basically to make this picture a bit more interesting, like the windows here, and this is also what I was talking about having a good how do you say it, analyzing the shape of things more thoroughly. So if you have a window like this, and you have a frame like this, this doesn't actually show if the window is inside of the wall or outside of the wall, or how in perspective it is. Is it like this? So we have the window like this, and it has a frame like this, and split into here, or is it like outside, or is it flat with a window like this? So I think it's really important if you draw architecture like this picture to accurately show the in Japanese they say dekoboko kan, so the so like the feeling of things being depressed or above. I don't know how to say it in English. Okay, so for example, this, if you see this window could be like this, so actually depressed a bit into the wall, and what it gives, it gives this kind of Pinterest is also nice for collecting stuff. You can see my Pinterest account if you are interested in things, but I find that more sources is better, so just a lot of places to search for references better, I think. Okay, so if you add a shadow here and a bit of three-dimensionality to this part, you will see that this window starts to look a bit more kind of realistic. And I think actually that this frame also, I'm doing it really roughly right now. If you put a bit more details in this part too, really not used to painting to painting with Photoshop recently. I have been using Procreate all the time. Something like this. So already this window looks a bit more three-dimensional and interesting. And what I would do for the insides, to make a nice effect, I would use the same color as the sky. Actually, it's the easiest way to just paint a window, because a lot of time the glass on the window is just reflecting what's in the sky, and I would add some shadows that suggests that there is something behind, maybe some curtains, something like that. I see that you're doing something like this here, but it's not prominent enough, so we cannot see it. This is also really important when painting. It's like if you put some textures and details, you have to be sure that's easy to see it, because if the texture is too small or the details are too small and not prominent enough, it will just get buried in the picture and just look like some how do you call it, not intentional. Okay. Something like that, for example. Okay, and because we have this roof here, I would also add a bit of edge here on this roof, because this roof has to have like a metal thing on top that prevents the water from going inside the concrete, so it has to have something like this. This is also about observation of the parts of the building. And because we have a strong shadow here, but this roof actually doesn't have so much shadows, the whole thing here is in shadow presumably. Let's remove this shadow here. Color is really difficult, and it's a topic that I find difficult to talk about because I did not get any proper color education, and most of the things that I know about color and painting came just from painting. So I did a lot of painting, I did a lot of stuff in the animation studio, which helped me to get hang on colors and what colors work together. This is a thing that I think is mostly gained by just analyzing other people's works and photos and stuff that you like, so pieces that you think the color works, and then applying this color scheme into your pictures. If you okay, so let's add a shadow here. Let's add it like this maybe. I usually don't like to use the multiply to add shadows, and I'll speak about this because this is also one of your questions. Let me see who asked it. Bcat Studio asked that I advised to not to use multiply and overlay layers for beginners because I think it's kind of difficult. And why? Okay, so yes, multiply layers are nice for effects, for quickly achieving effects like this. So you can add a shadow to a building like this, and it's nice and quick to do. But if you apply too much of it, or just go applying multiply or darken to stuff, and you get kind of, it's easy to get kind of carried away with such layers. It's easy to overkill a picture, and it's actually what is happening here. So it's easier to get like really dark shadows that are hard to control. And of course, if you are painting just with regular brushes on regular layers, not multiply or something like that, you can commit the same mistake. Just use black for shadows or something. But it's really easy to overlay, to overdo multiply or overlay layers when you're painting digitally and you're a beginner. This is thing that I did when I was a beginner, and it kills a picture if you overdo it, really. And it's the same thing with fancy brushes and with brushes that are kind of smooth and nice. One of the things that I often see with beginners trying to paint digitally is using like black shadows and using smooth brushes to apply these, and it makes your picture look really digitally, and I don't know. It's this is just this kind of style of like beginning to like a beginner using Photoshop. I This is really hard to explain, but um, I really think that using less effects and less brush types and simpler brushes for painting um, makes for more controlled, a more thoughtful process of making. Um, okay. This is just like my advice that you can use or not, but I know that I had a lot of not problems maybe, but pictures that I finished but they didn't look quite good and I didn't know why. And for me, it was a shock to discover that in the animation studio that I started working at in Tokyo, almost all of the artists did not use like any fancy brushes or multiply layers or overlay layers if they did not have to. They did use a lot of layers for everything, and that's true. But mostly they just painted like you would paint with oils or poster colors or gouache, just layering, adding details by hand, and they would not use any special. Okay, so I added an edge here, which I think helps to make this kind of three-dimensional. Also, I expanded the roof to make it more three-dimensional also, and I would add some highlights on the edge here because mostly this kind of a roof is a bit like plasticky or something like this or faded, so I would add a highlight here and maybe a shadow here underneath to shadow to highlight the fact that it's actually a bit underneath the banner. Okay, and yeah, mostly it's about like analyzing the shape of things. So for example, this roof, how is it supported? I guess you can say that it has some support structure underneath, like here or here. But to make this picture more interesting, we could add a pipe here that goes like here and goes like around like under here and it's like here and it's supported to the wall like underneath here. And also like this door, how does this door open? Is it like one slab of grid wood? Probably not. Probably it's like 3D. Yeah, like thinking backwards on pieces is really useful, but the thinking process and the process how a person gets to a to a result is really personal, I think. I know I have been watching a lot of videos of other people painting in my when I was beginning to do digital art, and it helped a lot in some cases, like helped to get it helped me to get some bearing on some things, but you have to remember that a lot of these artists that you can see on the internet, there are a lot of traps in watching videos that are like tutorial or speed painting or whatever, mostly because these paintings are done a bit for show, and not all the techniques that are used are kind of transparent, so there's a bit of this kind of wow effect. To get to a point quickly is cool, but sometimes doing like 10 studies for something is also okay, and it's probably more fruitful in the end than just, for example, photo bashing or whatever. So at some point I kind of stopped watching like speed painting videos and doing them also, because I thought that this is not really a thing that I'm aiming for in my art style. And I think that analyzing art that's kind of done, so you have the piece and you're trying to analyze it as a finished thing, can be more fruitful in a way, because you're trying to figure out a way you will be able to achieve similar effect and not how the person did it. I don't know if it makes any sense what I'm saying, but this is kind of what I have been thinking recently. Okay, so for a lantern like this, I think it's better to take the shape correctly. So a lantern like this is kind of roundish shape, and it has the paper layers and the wire layers, so you can see, and it has like the base here and here probably. Yeah, filing is really important. I don't like to do it. I don't think anyone likes to do it. But experimenting is always helpful, and failing is always not always good, but it's a good thing. Even when you achieve a level of skill that almost every time that you paint something it's presentable, at least there are some points that still will not satisfy, and I think it's also important to repeat the painting, so you can learn something from that process. Okay, so this is why using multiplayer layers is not really good. As you can see, like I added some shadow here, and it's also not really nice because it's just like a dark shadow on dark things. So usually I would just paint everything on a separate layer so I can then lock the layers and add some shadow where I need it. So here I have to use some like other layer magic to make the colors a bit more vivid and nice. Like fading is nice is yeah, fading is okay, but or having like a journal that you have just for this purpose, but repeatability is also what I recently find out is really important. So you do one painting and it doesn't work, so you do it again. um, you can learn from your mistake and just, okay, I'll just use this knowledge in my next painting or whatever. But I find that actually redoing something or doing something close to it but different and trying to fix the mistake that you did works better in my case, at least. For example, I did a painting of a shop recently and I was not pleased about it. Okay, so I know that I'm not pleased about it. What I'm not pleased about it, I'm trying to analyze what I don't like about this painting, and then I do another painting a bit differently, trying to fix the things that I think that didn't work well. Okay, let me add some highlights here on the duct thing. This is a multiplayer layer. Okay, so I did some things here. The last thing I would like I would like to think that the last thing I would like to do here is to remove the shadow here, because if anything, this wall should be directly connected to the pavement because this building is standing on it. So there should be no shadow here, but there should be like a thing that connects the building to the pavement, like a, I don't know how they call it, but like a thing here. And then you can paint a line that shows that it's kind of connected together, like this maybe. So this building actually looks a bit more like it's standing on something. Okay, so we have a bit more building here. We can add a shadow that is falling from somewhere. The thing that I would like to say here most is to be more aware of the shape of things. So more like analyze the shape of things, analyze the details of things, analyze how things are attached to other things, analyze how of what material it is made. Is it attached with like a bar like this, or is it like does it have a joint here or there? Is it more three-dimensional? Is it like this, or is it like this? Is it like inside the wall, or is it outside the wall? And then decide how to represent it so the details don't get lost in the picture and are visible to the viewer. Visibility is and contrast is one of the things that you have to be really careful and really aware of while you are painting. For example, a building like this looks really nice, but I don't know if these black walls are needed on both sides because they steal a lot of attention from the building. Then again, you need to have something to see the white wall, because if you just leave a white or blue background it will not be visible. So contrast is really important, and also the understanding the shape of things is really important. So three-dimensionality is always something that I push a lot when painting or drawing architecture, especially with elements like doors and frames and windows. You always have to look at how these things open, how they close, where to put the shadows to make it look kind of more three-dimensional and less flat. So the shape of things is really one of the most important things that you have to pay attention to when painting architecture. And you can over make it, so you can amplify things to make it look more interesting and more three-dimensional. Okay. Question from, I'm really sorry about probably butchering your name, Branwen Lelouch. I have a question. It's my actually huge struggle. I use watercolor to paint, but I have always like a line around my colors. I try to put less water, more water, nothing works. Okay, so the kind of wet edge thing. This is really difficult, because this is one of the things I actually try to avoid in my paintings. But you can achieve it with the right combination of paper. Also, paint that's more granulating. And I can tell you only thing that experiment with good paint and paper combination and the amount of water. And if you capture a thing that works for you, just use it all the time. This is what I do. I actually do the opposite thing. So one of the things that I try in my watercolor paintings is to make them as flat as I can. So I avoid these edges as much as I can. Okay, so let me show you a thing. I don't know if I can. Where is it? My work. Okay, so I did a picture of the Mampei Hotel recently, and I did a sketch first. And this sketch was done on a small sketchbook paper. And this paper is actually a bit oily, so the paint does stay on the paper quite long, and it dries in these kind of edge formations. So it does have this edge. And I actually don't like this effect, but this is on the Midori Traveler's watercolor sketchbook, which has this kind of oily pages which give this effect. And this is no texture paper, but I used the same paints to do the full version like this, and this is the same paint but different paper. And as you can see, it has a lot less of these edge effects, because this paper plays differently with the paint. It sucks the paint and the wetness, the water, more inside as you paint, so the paint kind of dries gradually and faster, so the pigment is more evenly spread. So I think it depends a lot on the amount of water that you use, and a lot of the pigment that you have on your brush also. But on the paper, it depends a lot. Okay, so here you have the. Let me open them side by side. Okay, so here's the sketch thing. here is the final thing. So you can see the difference in the texture, and there's a lot of difference, especially like here. It's more edges. So what I would recommend is using more granulated watercolors if you can, because they will give you more of the texture effect. But using more water rather than less, and testing some papers that you can buy, especially the ones with less texture, and the ones that are more kind of oily. So when you paint, the paint is more stays in this kind of drops on top of the paper and dries longer. The water will once it forms this kind of so the paint will form this kind of drops, and once it dries, it will dry like this. So you will have more and more of the pigment kind of gathering on the edges here, and it will be drying like this. And if you have a paper that plays better with the like tension of the water, and the paint kind of stays this flat, it will just dry as a flat surface. So I think it's a more question of paper in this case. Okay. Do I have any more questions here? I did this one, I did this one, I did this one, I did the... Okay. Abe Revi asks, I would like to see an analysis of Tokyo Storefront watercolor in which you tell us what color you use for each part. And this is a thing I would like to do, probably maybe like next month or the month after that. When I finish the book, I would like to do a video like this that would analyze one of my watercolors. I don't know if the Tokyo Storefronts, because I already kind of forgot what colors I used where, but maybe one piece that would be easier to analyze for this kind of purpose. So maybe for this I will paint something using only like 6 colors or something, so you will be able to see exactly what mixes I used for what part. And a video like this would be really nice also for the YouTube thing. So maybe I'll do a video like this on YouTube, or just like a Patreon Q&A live session where in Photoshop I just put a lot of arrows on places and explain all the color choices. But for this I think I'll have to do a piece that I'm fresh and remember what colors I used where. But this is a really nice idea, and I would like to do this. Okay, so I think that's that. I still have some questions from Martin about details and about my daily kind of sports routine, but I think I'll leave it for the next Q&A session, because we are already over an hour, and yeah, my still kind of sore throat is starting to give, so I think I'll leave it at that. If you have any additional questions, please ask like below in the comments, or send me an email, but I think in the comments is safer, so I will not lose it somewhere. I always check before starting a Q&A if there are any new questions in the comments, so if you have anything, just ask there. And all the Q&As are available on YouTube in a playlist, so you can just go there and watch them and listen to them while you work or whatever. You would be able, you should be able to watch all the previous Q&As also. Also, I want to do more stuff like the correction or advice things for your pictures. So maybe not the next one, but in the future I'll do a Q&A with the correction session again. You'll be able to send some pictures of yours also to get my opinion. Okay, that's it. I'm starting on the 29th picture tomorrow, probably, for the Tokyo at night. So only 2 pictures left. And I'm progressing also with setting up the DFTBA goods store with some original prints I'm starting to do, and I'll let you know about that when it's more close to fruition on Patreon too. If you have any questions or anything that you would like me to do a text post about also, feel free to text, to comment, or message me, so I can write a nice article and then post it on my blog also. This is an important thing. If you want to read about some of my things, there is a page on my website with all the articles that I have published so far, with a lot of I think interesting thoughts. There is the articles section on my website, so you can also read about stuff. Wait, I'll link it into the chat. And also there is a there's my blog, on which I have a surprising amount of works and articles published. So you can also check out some images and tools and text there also. Okay, let me put it here. So, okay. Thanks a lot for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next Q&A next month probably. I'll try to do it more earlier if I can, but the book is kind of pressing on me, so okay. See you later. As always, feel free to comment, and I'll see you in the next Q&A session. Bye.